is a picture of Jesus.
Nobody knows the power of God, what He's intending to do in a person's life.
Hi, welcome to CrossTalk International. I'm Josh Weiss, and today we have a fun message planned for you. We're talking about the dumbest scam in the Bible. My dad, Dr. Randy Weiss, is going to tell us all about that, and then we have something extra special planned for you. We're going to take a look at something you'd never expect to see from CrossTalk history. This is going to be a fun episode, so stick around.
What is the most implausible story in the Bible? That's what I want to talk to you about. Jonah was stuck for 3 days in the belly of a big fish. Sounds like a pretty big fish story. Moses split the Red Sea, and some say the Red Sea was really the sea of reeds. They contend that the water was only a few feet deep. But as the old joke goes, if the Jews walked across the little sea of reeds, the real miracle was drowning the Egyptians with their horses and chariots in something shallower than a bathtub. It's written, and I believe, that Jesus fed 5,000 with a to-go lunch from Long John Silver's. How about little David forgot to carry a knife to a gunfight? Seriously, why would a little guy like David go pick a fight with a giant? Did he really kill a veteran warrior who was armed to the teeth with a slingshot? Well, the giant was a pretty big target, and in a book filled with miracles, how big was that giant, really? Numerous sources peg Goliath to have been between 9 foot 6 inches to 11 foot 4 inches tall. I mean, that's a really big target. But the Dead Sea Scrolls and even the Septuagint that Jesus read only pegged Goliath to be tall enough to be a center on a varsity high school ball team at perhaps 6.5 feet tall. For the record, I believe Jonah was in the belly of the big fish just as Jesus said. And I believe that Moses raised his staff and the Red Sea parted. Perhaps the greater miracle in the Exodus account was Aaron finding his kid brother Moses after being radio silent for 40 years and just happening to show up on the backside of the desert after Moses finished up his little burning bush moment. Now, actually, there are many implausible accounts recorded in the Bible. Donkeys talk. The sun went backwards. Time stood still. Jesus rose from the dead. And I believe all of them. They're all true. But one otherwise implausible story in the Bible never made any sense to me. It's found in Genesis chapter 27, verses 1 to 45. And I'll be referencing the Message version, a modern paraphrase. When I survey the whole story, the only thing I can conclude is that the last words seem to explain the real first words. It's a famous, familiar account about Isaac, Jacob, Esau, and their mother Rebekah. Now, you got to recognize that Rebekah had overheard a conversation that Isaac had with his firstborn son Esau. Isaac was old and thought his death was imminent. He spelled out the menu he wanted for his last meal. He told Esau to go out hunting and prepare some fresh game for his entree. And then after dinner, Isaac promised to bless Esau, as was customary for the firstborn son at the soon-to-be passing of the patriarch of the family. Rebekah quickly concocted an impossible scheme that had no chance for success. She told Jacob to carefully grab one of their tender young goats, and she determined to cook it up and have Jacob serve it up to Isaac as though he was Esau instead of himself, the younger of the two twin boys. Rebekah proposed that if Jacob had followed her absurd plan, that Isaac would give him the blessing after dinner before he died. What could possibly go wrong here? Jacob was no dim bulb. He immediately saw a problem. "But mother," Jacob said, "my brother is a hairy man, and I have smooth skin." He realized all his years of borrowing his mother's skin moisturizer might work against him. Jacob said, "Well, what happens if my father touches me? He'll think I'm playing games with him. I'll bring down a curse on myself instead of a blessing." Always looking out for her more delicate son, Rebekah said, "If it came to that, I'll take the curse on myself. Just hurry up, go get the goat. We're burning daylight." Right about now, I'm beginning to wonder, wait a minute. If the blessing is that important, how horrible must the curse get? And if she could just transfer it from Jacob to herself, why not just find a more realistic way to negotiate a deal with Esau? After all, if he was willing to sell his birthright for a pot of stew, surely an affordable deal could be made when he was drunk or needed to get his laundry done. And that brings me to the dirty laundry, literally. If any of this story is true, I hope this part is, because it just screams of being implausible. Rachel took to heart Jacob's concern about his smooth, tender skin. She'd already invented a solution that would have surely worked in some cartoon world, but in reality, the next step could only have been described as cartoonish. She grabbed some of Esau's dirty laundry from the floor of his tent, where he always threw his clothes when they got too crusty. Then she duct taped some goat skins to his hairless little arms and the nape of his hairless skinny neck. In that bold move, suddenly the scent of skin cream and hair conditioner was replaced with Esau's body odor, and the likely lily-white tender skin of a baby's bottom was covered in the coarse hair of a goat. Again, I ask, what could possibly go wrong? This whole picture is so counterintuitive that it must be a skit for Saturday Night Live. And then there's Jacob, one of the revered patriarchs of the Judeo-Christian faith of the world. Surely Jacob would have stood up and said, "Mother, this is wrong. It is a base, immoral gesture not to be considered. This is no way to treat my brother, and it is certainly no way to treat my father and your husband on his deathbed." And such a response is precisely what we would have expected from our hero, even if he was a little larcenous or harbored resentment from countless wedgies or a few little brother swirlies. As a minimum, Jacob should have at least said, "Come on, Mom, this is a dumb idea, or Esau will kill me when he finds out." But rather, he seemed to blindly just follow whatever his mommy said. I think he was just grateful that he had no hair on his arms, because he knew that duct tape was going to come off before he hit the sack. Rebekah gave him the Last Supper and sent him to trick his dying father. There are so many problems I see with this. Implausible is just one word to describe it.
We're going to take a break from all the deception. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Did you know that leprosy still exists? That's why a few years ago, we worked with World Missionary Evangelism to create a leper clinic here in India, where we provide the medicines and food and the gospel on a daily basis. One thing we found was that the children of leper patients were contracting the disease as well, because they get the disease through regular daily contact over long periods of time. So we worked with WME to create a children's home where the children of these leper patients could live nearby their family, but Give them a hope and a future free of the disease. Would you consider sponsoring one of these children? Would you consider helping to give them a hope and a future? For just $25 a month, you can give that hope. You can provide that future. Less than $1 a day. Give us a call at 1-800-688-3422.
Isaac was shocked at how fast his son had killed, skinned, and cooked the animal that he'd hunted. He was unaware of Grubhub, drive-thrus, or frozen food, but Isaac did seem to smell a rat. The microwave venison puzzled Isaac. He asked the question that must have terrified Jacob. "Come close, son. Let me touch you. Are you really my son Esau?" Isaac felt him and said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, but I find this humorous. Please don't count me as disrespectful." Isaac had touched the goat's hair stuck on Jacob's arms, and Jacob suddenly had a burst of confidence, just as he was thinking to himself, "Yes, works every time. The old goatskin trick." But then, just as Isaac was about to bless him, he pressed him. Can't help myself. I hope you really can be patient with me. He said, "You're sure you are my son Esau?" Jacob didn't miss one lying beat, and he said, "Yes, I am." Suddenly, Isaac's hunger got the best of him. Enough detective work here for one night. And he said, "Bring the food so I can eat of my son's game and give you my personal blessing." Jacob quickly fed him and also filled him up with wine. And he was taking no more chances of the scheme disintegrating before his very eyes. Then Isaac said, "Come close, son, and kiss me." And he came close and he kissed him. And Isaac smelled the smell of his clothes. Finally, he blessed him. It was as though Esau's dirty laundry was enough to seal the deal. What do you do with this far-fetched tale? Did Isaac really ask Jacob, "Are you sure? Are you certain you are my son Esau?" I mean, seriously? Who asks such a question? And moments later, he forgets any unquenchable doubt by saying, "Bring me my food, I'm hungry." Perhaps he thought everything would begin to make sense on a full stomach. And then there's the whole freshly killed goat skin. Have you ever smelled a dead animal? Rebecca had no time to cure the pelt. The goat was killed, skinned, and cooked as fast as she could make it happen. And Isaac clearly knew something was up. He heard Jacob's voice. He absolutely knew who he heard, even if the goat skin confused him. Have you ever petted a goat? The hair is tough and coarse. I mean, did he really think his son felt like a goat? Were I Esau, that all by itself, I would have found that to be terribly offensive. Of course, he didn't know because Esau may have been a bit of a dim bulb. Well, we will never know because Isaac did exactly as Rebekah had hoped, and he gave the blessing to Jacob. And then, surprise, surprise, almost as though it was timed by, a Hollywood choreographer working with a scriptwriter, right after Isaac had blessed Jacob and had left, Esau showed up. I'm beginning to wonder if Isaac was in on this. How did he react to Esau's arrival? Isaac started to tremble, shaking violently. Is that an overreaction? Had he practiced his facial gestures knowing Esau was surely going to show up? Is this the most implausible story in the Bible? One other major hiccup to overcome, if one wishes to believe this story, is that from the time of Isaac's deathbed blessing, a dying man's last meal, Isaac was extremely slow to expire. Like, let's say, maybe 50 years? Seriously, some scholars believe Isaac was 130 years old when this charade took place. But as we know from the 35th chapter of Genesis, when he died, Isaac was 180 years old. He must have eaten a miracle goat, because Isaac lived longer than any of the patriarchs. Selah. So, now after sowing so many seeds of doubt, allow me to rip them out by the root. I believe the whole thing. I believe the Bible is the inerrant, inspired, and perfectly plausible Word of God. From in the beginning all the way through the maps, I believe the Bible. And I even have a potential proposal as to why this whole scandalous conspiracy was concocted by Rebekah. The last words of the account might provide insight to explain the first words. At the conclusion of chapter 27, Genesis explains that Rebekah was warning Jacob to run for his life. She sent him to her brother Laban's home, far away in Haran. She alerted Jacob that Esau was coming after him. He's going to kill you. And with her co-conspirator leaving the scene of the crime, the strangest verbal exchange is recorded. Rebekah spoke to Isaac, "I'm sick to death of these Hittite women. If Jacob marries a native Hittite woman, why live?" Immediately following the seemingly successful heist of Isaac's blessing, Rebekah waltzed right into Isaac to complain about their daughters-in-law. It was as though the cartoon conspiracy was over. Now she could return to reality, and the reality of Isaac and Rebekah was not all roses. In fact, it had two very painful thorns. The final verse of chapter 26 might tell us all we need to know about chapter 27, in what otherwise is the most implausible story in the Bible. When Esau learned what Jacob had done, he seethed in anger. He said, "The time for mourning my father's death is close, and then I'll kill my brother Jacob." When these words of her older son were reported to Rebekah, she sent Jacob to Haran. But who recorded the truth? It had to be Isaac. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. They turned out to be thorns in the sides of Isaac and Rebekah. Could the entire charade have been a result of some prickly daughters-in-law? When it was all over, the last words do seem to explain the real first words. Isaac and Rebekah had a real problem with some nasty daughters-in-law. The blessing simply couldn't go to their husband, and neither Isaac or Rebekah were willing to tolerate any more like them in their family. Rebekah made clear to Isaac she simply wouldn't live with more of the same. In fact, her words suggest life wouldn't have been worth living. That's quite a serious thing to say. And the plot to trick Esau seems to have been hatched in the bitter disgust created by his wives. I could be wrong, but it makes more sense than some theories. What do you think? Was Isaac in on it? I don't know. But chapter 28 opens with Isaac telling Jacob, leave at once. Don't marry a Canaanite gal. And Esau figured out how badly his parents were hurt by their wrong-headed, wrong-hearted daughters-in-law. And he ran out and married non-Hittite relatives, daughters of Ishmael. It's a lot to take in. But I kind of like my solution to this puzzle. I'll be interested in your thoughts. Shoot me an email, drop me a line, randy@crosstalk.org. Till next time, shalom.
Hi there. My name's Eli Weiss, and I'm a producer here at CrossTalk. And if you couldn't tell by the last name, it's a bit of a family thing going on here. This is my grandfather, and all of us are kind of involved in the ministry. Our 50th anniversary is coming up soon, so we've been looking deep in the archives, and we found something very interesting. So my Zadie here, which is the Hebrew word for grandfather, he has an interesting video that I think you guys might want to take a look at. So let's go ahead and see it.
F-U-C, F-U-C, I-M-N-D, wrong direction. Won't you please help me? F-U-C, I-M-N-D, wrong direction. Won't you please help me? The only difference between a trail and a trial is where I am. The only difference between a trail and a trial is where I am. The only difference between a trail and a trial is where I am. The only difference between a trail and a trial is where I am. Where I place my eyes, where I place the me. Where you place the me is where I want to be. If I get the me in front of the you, I get off the trail and wear out my shoes. The only difference between the trail and the trial is where I am. The only difference between the trail and the trial is where I am. I get oh so lost and oh confused. Instead of being useful, I be abused. F-U-C-I-M-N-D, wrong direction. Won't you please help me? F-U-C-I-M-N-D, wrong direction. Won't you please help me? F-U-C-I-M-N-D, wrong direction. Won't you please help me? The only difference between the trail and the trial is where I am. The only difference between the trail and the trial is where I am. The only difference between the trail and the trial is where I am. The only difference between a trail and a trial is where I am.
Interesting video, to say the least.
I'd like to think so.
I mean, I have a few questions, as you can imagine.
Sure.
The first thing is, where did this idea come from?
Well, from trials. That's exactly where it came from. And recognizing that God is often in our trials, and if we can't figure out how urgent it is to
to recognize where God is in our trials, then all we are doing is we're on a blind path. We're on a trail, and there's not a clear destination. But when we recognize that God is in our trials, He's with us, and He wants us to trust Him. He wants us to somehow find a way to give Him praise even in the trial. Then it becomes a life experience that builds our faith.
That's a very different meaning than I would have got from that music video, to be completely honest with you.
Well, if you see that I am in the wrong direction, please, won't you help me? Won't you tell me? So the message is that song and that video is a whole series of things that you're doing wrong. Okay? The last scene, or one of the last scenes in there, I was shoveling snow with a shovel, and there was a drag line right there. Crank up the diesel and get that thing going. But you can spend your whole life just shoveling, not recognizing that God has the tools at your disposal to accomplish whatever it is He's called you to do. But you have to open your eyes, you have to have the vision, you have to be willing to take the steps, or you can just spend your life uselessly missing out on God helping you in your circumstance.
Or going up backwards on the stairs.
That's exactly right.
Well, if you want to see more interesting music videos like that, we're working on getting all of them on our social medias. So like, subscribe, share. Every single platform is CrossTalk TV. Go ahead and follow us there. If you're looking to see these videos, we're going to try to get them on YouTube because they're very interesting, and I'm sure you'd like to see more of them. If you've been blessed by our program today or any program before and you'd like to give to the ministry, you can give in a couple different ways. Our preferred method is through the website, which is crosstalk.org, but we have many ways to give. You can give through the P.O. box that's on the screen, or you can call us at the number 1-800-688-3422.
Let me just add, and I hope they don't cut this, I don't care about your money. But if there's anything that we can do, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have any prayer requests, I just want you to know that Jesus changed my life, and He's still changing lives. And I've been telling people this for almost 50 years. This is my 50th year serving the Lord, and it would be my privilege to serve you in any way that I can, because Jesus changed my life, and He's still in the life-changing business. Till next time, shalom.